Welcome back. You're listening to Retirement Unlimited with Randy Barkley and Jeremiah Lee. We both work together at Tricord Advisors, where we help our clients kind of walk through life's hard choices, and we're here to discuss some of the hard stuff we see. Randy and I are both certified financial planners. I'm also a California licensed attorney. So we've been talking about buying your first home, interest rates, things of that nature. And we're shifting a little bit to talk about what the Fed's been doing with interest rates and how that affects house prices, of course, but it also affects the economy.
Yeah.
So as most people know, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, a week ago, I think, adjusted the rates of 0.75 of a point again,
right,
and kind of move forward. And so what we've been talking about in our office is what's next. What's coming up.
Yeah, and I think that, of course, everybody is, the people on the far extreme, there's always extremes. And there's people that think, okay, this is going to be different.
Yeah.
They're trying to move towards something that's going to change the economy forever going forward. I don't believe that. I believe that Jerome Powell is focused on inflation. And I think that most economists thought initially that this was going to be kind of a transitory thing, but it got embedded, and it got embedded within the economy. And he saw that as more of a danger long term to allow that to continue. And he's going to increase interest rates. And he's very clear about his intention. And I think the Board of Governors from the Federal Reserve he has the support.
Yeah.
They want to kick inflation. They want it down.
Well, really, it's being the adult in the room or taking the hard medicine, whatever analogy you want to use. But these interest rates are not enjoyable.
Right.
They don't make things fun. But the alternative of having runaway inflation is extremely painful, in the midterm as well as in the long term, especially for people who are retired and kind of these more fixed income positions. So it's hard medicine, but it's healthy. It's helpful to get past this inflation. What we and many economists are looking at is that there may be a couple more raises between now and the end of the year.
Right.
And the hope that many people would say is that the last raise will be diminished slightly and then will be stable for a while.
Yeah, and I think that, the interest rates and the climbing of the interest rates has had a real impact upon the kind of equities that you hold. So obviously interest relates to that. If you have a growth portfolio that is dependent upon that money going. Well, when money was really cheap, in other words, they were almost giving it away in the last 5-6 years. Now it's become more expensive, become more dear, and those kinds of holdings have really come under pressure because they don't give dividends out.
Yeah.
So we really have shifted towards the beginning of the year. We started shifting towards stocks that would pay dividends because we think the future is going to be slightly different than the past, because of that easy money policy, it affects the overall economy, and what companies are going to benefit from that and what companies are going to really come under pressure from that.
And there's really going to be a lot of winners and losers here. And so, picking good stocks, having good quality holdings. There's always prudent advice to say hold while on the down. And people's fears, the market's going to fall forever and you just pull everything out. And we talk through with that all on a regular basis. Talk through people with that.
Yeah, the fear level is really high, and you want to be able to tamp that down a little bit and bring it back into reality and show the perspective over the long term. And yes, right now it's painful. It looks painful, but when you look at it over a 5-year period or even a 3-year period, it's not as painful as what most people would think it is.
Right, and now is actually an opportunity rather than saying a fear-based, I need to get everything out, because that's a poor choice, but to say, do I need to change anything? Are these the best assets for me to hold? And some people who had capital gains from 2020 and 2021 that weren't moving stocks because of the capital gain implications. Well, not that you want it to come down, but the silver lining is if things have come down, that you can now pivot to a better position.
Right.
Now's a good time to do that. Some of the charts you were showing me before is that, we've had significant gain from just before, 3 years ago, just before the COVID downturn till basically the beginning of this year was significant growth. And then including the last 6 months, we're still notably up. And I think the thing you had was 23% from where we were 3 years ago to where we are now.
Right.
People would like to be higher, of course, but
yeah, I think the thing I'm having a lot of conversation with clients about is the effect on bonds. Typically, bonds within a portfolio are more the ballast; they're more the stabilizer. And bonds have had a significant hit when it comes to mark to market. And in fact, we've put together a newsletter that we'll be sending out this week. And anybody that's listening to us right now that would like to have a copy of that newsletter, what we've tried to do is explain what mark-to-market means on bond portfolio. And as I sit down with clients, we could have a bond portfolio that the maturity is maybe 7 years or 5 years or something like that. And it's down significantly because what happens is, and and this is what I try to explain in the newsletter, is when you buy a bond, let's say you bought a bond a year ago or 2 years ago, and the interest rate was 1.5% to 2% or maybe less. And all of a sudden that same bond that you buy today is now 3 or 4%. Well, what the market does is automatically mark that down. It doesn't talk about the quality of the bond or the risk of the bond. What it just says, if you're going to sell that bond today, the market is going to give you something less than what you paid for it back a year or 2 years ago. So mark to market is really understanding that if you hold on to your bond as it gets closer to that maturity date, because you're still receiving interest from the borrower, that bond will automatically heal. So I really had to explain to clients, and that's why we put this together in this newsletter, understand what goes on when they do this mark to market.
Yeah.
And it's really important because bonds make up some portion of our clients' portfolios, and some clients is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And
and to deal with the emotions of that. I mean, it'd be if
Right.
someone had no intention of selling their home for the next 10 years. You know, I live here, this is my home, I'm not selling it,
right.
but they see on Zillow or Redfin that their house value has gone down. Well, they're not intending to sell. So,
Right.
you know, rather than letting themselves sit in those emotions and feel bad, and did I make a bad choice? What are we going to do? To say, well, we're not selling. We'll just
Right.
we'll just keep carrying on, and the markets will be different 10 years from now. Similar with bonds, even though they've been marked down at the moment, many clients have no intention of selling them.
Right.
They have no intention of changing things. And as bonds get closer to the maturity date, they come back to that face value, and so they heal.
And then we'll do what we call laddering. And laddering means that we're going to buy bonds that have more current interest rates or higher interest rates. So as they mature, we'll take that principal and it'll automatically step up into a higher interest rate.
There's a lot of bond funds that we use, other people use, that do that on a regular basis. As they get the payments from the coupons, they turn those around and they buy new bonds. So it's constantly this rolling idea, getting into more current bonds. That was good. And I guess connecting a little bit with the Fed chairman of kind of where they're at, they have a hard job. They're trying to hit this right. And I was compared to like driving in the snow or driving in the rain. If you're driving in the snow and you turn the wheels and it doesn't immediately respond, the fear base is to turn the wheel harder. Oh no, oh no. And then that's how people spin out or, shoot off the road. Really, you have to turn the wheel at the appropriate amount and wait for the tires to grab traction. And that's, I think, what they're doing at the moment. They've turned the wheel. They've adjusted some interest rates, and they have to wait for the economy to respond. And they're slowly, continuing to turn. And if the economy catches at the right moment, easy enough. If it doesn't, that's where we get concerned.
Yeah, and again, I think we're looking for indicators that inflation is coming down, because that really is the key factor. And there's a lot of things that we look at that would give us an indication that inflation is starting to peak or starting to come back down.
Yep.
Still, I think the interest rates will probably continue to rise.
And that will impact on the plus side. The positive side, bonds will probably pay more than they used to.
Right.
Certificates of deposit will pay more than they used to. Savings accounts will actually pay something, which is great. The negatives on a lot of this is, we will see people's spending power, if they're just sitting in cash, may erode because of inflation. The ability to buy a home or some of these home prices, that may go away. So it's going to be a shift in our economy in the near term and in the midterm.
Right. So again, for most people, what they need to do is to continue to stay invested. Recessions and bear markets are short as compared to expansion and bull markets.
Yeah.
And even though the pain seems severe and contracting, it doesn't make you feel comfortable. But when you look at the charts, and that's where this newsletter, we can send it out to you, it really gives you a good illustration of how different a recession or bear market is in relationship to an expansion or bull market, right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you like a copy of our newsletter, you can go to our website. It's retirementunlimited.com. There's a contact button there. You click on that, send us an email. We'll send you a copy, or give our office a call. It's 951-684-7011. If there's any part of this discussion that you missed and you want to catch the whole thing, you can find it on our website, or you can find us on YouTube.